Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Got a real special video here for you today. I got my friend here, Mr. Mark Novak from Anvil Gunsmithing.
Howdy.
We have a very special piece of hardware to show you. This is not just your average flintlock. This is a really cool rifle. So let's talk a little bit about it.
A Ferguson 1778 flintlock rifle that loads through the breech. Not very many people get to get a gander at one of these things. This particular weapon was designed specifically to be able to be operated behind cover and concealment. Colonel Ferguson drew on some existing civilian designs at that time and applied it to what amounts to an Anglicanized German Jaeger. So the British pattern 1776 service rifle is essentially this with a breech added to it. What makes this particular gun so special is this 11 Helix breech plug. There are 11 separate spirals wrapped around this, and this plug tapers 40 thousandths of an inch from here to here. So when you put this plug in, it locks up like a bank vault. I did an Anvil episode on this particular gun because it was such a faithful reproduction of the original. They copied all of its engineering flaws. So everything that broke on the original guns broke on this thing. There is a movie prop company called Artistry in Motion up in Pennsylvania, and they own it as a movie prop, and it was down at the Citadel for the History of Firearms class that we were going to go attend, and then the world did what the world did. He allowed me to repair it because even the reproductions of these guns are rare.
Yep. It's not a real common thing to have laying around, guys. And Patrick Ferguson was certainly a very colorful and interesting individual. He certainly had a heck of a lot of disdain for authority. He did not like authority. He very much was a rabble-rouser and always wanted to kind of, carve his own path out. So he convinced the British government to not only give him a weapon that would have cost about $25,000
in today's money.
In today's money, he also, convinced the British Crown to send him over to America to fight us with 100 men in an experimental rifle corps.
Oh, very experimental.
Yes. So Patrick Ferguson took this rifle, armed 100 men, and had an experimental rifle corps, and of course came over here to the Americas and fought in the Revolutionary War with these guys. Now,
the Battle of Brandywine was where these got run.
Yeah.
And they were successful with them because you could shoot them from behind a rock. You can load this gun. In a video I did, I loaded this gun lying flat on my back, which you cannot do with a Brown Bess.
Well, I think one of the most important distinctions, not only the fact that it can be loaded from the breech, which is really cool. And remember, in a flintlock rifle, that technology, breech load technology for us didn't come around until around 1812 with the Hall.
With the Hall,
and
right.
then the Hall is actually a leaky cauldron of gases and everything. They didn't seal very well, and the Halls just didn't hold up nearly as good as these do,
Right.
Now, the one issue is that as this gun would begin to foul, this 11-star screw would get really fouled up bad and would be difficult to remove, and a lot of the soldiers would spit on them or pour a little water on them to kind of clean them as they go. Keep it moving. But despite some of its shortcomings, it was a really cool design. But I think one of the most important features of this is that it sort of married a military weapon with a hunting rifle with a rifled barrel, right? Because all of the soldiers, on our side and their side, were using smoothbore muskets, which were not very accurate. This gave you a rifled barrel that you could precisely fit a projectile that, because the projectile loaded from the rear and you didn't have to squeeze it down a bore, that was really good for accuracy because that ball would really engage the rifling and be generally pretty accurate.
We got one of the balls back from it, and the ball came out of it, and there is no way we're going to see, but there is actually a line of rifling engraved around this where this ball, so here's the numbers. You have 60 caliber on the lands, 620 in the grooves, and this powder chamber that sits back here is 680. These balls are 640 thousandths in diameter, so the ball drops in the hole and rolls up and stops. And when the powder charge goes off, it just swages this ball into the rifle. And this thing is actually pretty damn accurate.
Yeah.
We did some good work with this thing today, and we hit everything we were aiming at right over the top of the sights. I was impressed.
Well, when I shot the baffle stack, okay, we did a penetration test. That's how we were able to recover this projectile. When we did the baffle test, I was aiming at a label on the board, and the projectile went precisely where I was looking.
Right.
And man, these guns are really uncommon, but if I ever have a chance to get my hands on one of these, I cannot wait to take one of these deer hunting. And one of the important distinctions is this is one of the first times I've actually ever fired a flintlock at all.
Yeah, if you're
this is one flintlock to.
If you're gonna get your flintlock checkmark card punch, call it what you want to call it. This is a relatively family-friendly channel. That's the way to do it. Now, this particular piece of equipment sitting on the table in front of us is a reproduction that was made by Narragansett Arms in the year 2000. They made 250 of these. They were not inexpensive. The last reproduction that sold at auction was $6,000. And that's about what I'd charge you to make one, because there's that much labor in it towards you, yeah. So this particular gun is a reproduction built on a rifle shop parts in Jones, Oklahoma. And it's a nice shooting gun, but even the reproductions are scarce. The originals, there were only 4 men on the planet that could make this breech screw. So you got to figure they made about 100 of these things, 110 of them. They don't really know. They were very expensive. They shot gunpowder that was double refined. It was twice as expensive as regular gunpowder. In an age when, in today's money, a Brown Bess was a $1,000 weapon, this was $23,000 to $25,000 to have this made, because you had to have a very good, like Durst Ag or Henry Knock make it. And then it was shipped 4,000 miles over into the combat theater on a wooden sailing ship. So from a military logistics standpoint, the minute Colonel Ferguson got hurt, this gun's days in the theater were over. There are only 2 of them that are intact. There are parts of a 3rd one in existence. There are a couple of civilian models of this that only have a 10 start Helix instead of an 11. And other than that, this thing is as scarce as hen's teeth. Even getting a replica. Now, the reason why I took this replica in, like I had explained, it sort of found its way to me in Charleston, because there's a lot that goes on there. It had broken right here. When you shoot this gun, it wants to bend up like this and away, and it just taffy pulled that. So on my video, we've got a steel bolt coming from here all the way down the inside of the lock plate, and it runs out down here underneath the lock screw. So there's now a steel backbone to this thing, and it isn't going to come back apart. You had noticed during filming that there was a crack here.
Right.
That was because that crack had precipitated and all the load was over here. That crack's been tightened up. It's not propagating. I wasn't worrying about it. There were a couple other things that happened. The original Ferguson's, the screw that holds the lock plate in, doesn't come all the way through. It's not a true lock nail. They had drilled that screw when they made the reproduction and the original into the powder chamber. So the backside of that screw is exposed to breech pressure.
That's not
and
good.
It just kind of did that whole, all right, it just spit it out. I brought that up 2 screw sizes and sealed off the inside so the screw's not available. So fix that, fix this. The trigger was atrocious. Fixed the trigger on it and got it back down to where we do some good work with it. It's not as fast as the average flintlock because of the geometry of what it takes to get the flash through. I'll bring this back out again. There's a notch here in the breech plug, and this notch, the flash has to go around that notch and into the chamber. There's a lot of steel here. This steel absorbs infrared energy, slows it down a little bit, and you see on some of the videos, it's not the world's fastest screaming hot flintlock, but it isn't slow either.
I think that there were certainly some, military tactics that were developed even from a system like this. The fact that you could load it laying down, the fact that you didn't have to expose yourself to enemy fire to load it was definitely next level thinking. Just the fact that it's breech loaded and it's rifled, that right there is next level thinking. One thing instantly that I love about this musket is it points real naturally. It's super lightweight. It's way lighter than it looks. It's shorter and handier than a Brown Bess or any of the other muskets that would have been in use during the Revolutionary War. So there, it wins points for me there. But then also, just the fact that accuracy's there. I just always thought, being such an early rifle. So there was a story, all right, now this story gets passed around a little bit, and we can't talk about Patrick Ferguson without talking about Washington and Pulaski. Okay, so the rumor mill is, okay, I know people may have heard this story, maybe they haven't, was that Colonel Ferguson actually had Washington in his sights.
In his sights.
Of this rifle, of the Ferguson carbine.
And didn't kill him because he was an officer.
And, well, because he was an officer and he didn't appear to be armed. And the men were not armed, they were just doing their thing. But the story is that Ferguson spared Washington.
And the world is a different place because of it, and it's a good thing.
Yep, that's the rumor. And that's one of the things, history-wise, that is so special about this gun to me, is to think that, there really wasn't a sniper rifle back then, but that was the closest thing you had. I mean,
this pig's accurate.
The British were bringing in, the German, what do they call it? German, the Hessians. Yeah, the German mercenaries. Basically, they were just hunters. Right. They brought, German hunters over there.
They brought short, heavy caliber rifles with them, and they were very good at it, and they had a lot of discipline. And the British also understood that the only way to compete with the American long rifle in accuracy was to get a rifle made. And the pattern 1776 rifle was essentially a German Jaeger that had been Anglicanized to take British supply system parts. Yeah. And they did a good job. They didn't make many of those either. Specialty kit for a special problem. And it worked, but too many moving parts. This freezes fairly easily. This will freeze in its mortise. I was pouring water on it. Well, we kept it running. I got 3 shots out of it in a row. You got 3 shots out of it in a row. We kept it moving.
Yeah.
So it's equipped with a ramrod. It has a ramrod with it, because if this plug freezes in the gun, you can still run it as a muzzleloader with standard carbine caliber ball.
Interesting.
It'll run. You can run it as a muzzleloader.
This is a really special rifle for sure, man. Really is. I
enjoyed it. We drove all the way to Charleston because we had it. And we drove all the way here from Charleston because I wanted you to be able to run it.
And we were able to locate the proper diameter mold for it.
Yeah, well, you had that 640 gang mold made for it, which was fabulous. Those 640 balls roll right in, and there's 40 thousandths of interference. Man, they engrave and rock, and I don't know how you're going to be able to show that, but there is a definite belt. That ball is no longer round. It's kind of round like that, and it ran.
It's so cool, man.
And it penetrated a lot of plywood.
Yeah,
there's about 100 grains of powder in this. This is not a sneezer gun. Yeah, this is a 62 caliber gun with 100 grains of powder behind it. This thing is really whipping up some hate and discontent.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, so we'll just end the video by talking about what happened to Patrick Ferguson. So Colonel Ferguson was killed here. He was killed on a place called Kings Mountain. And there was a pretty nasty fight on the top of Kings Mountain, okay? Him and his mistress, Virginia Sow, were killed. And when they found Colonel Patrick's body, I believe there was some 3 or 4 bullet holes in him and about 14 bayonet wounds.
And when he arrived at the battle, he was already partially maimed anyway from previous combat. The guy lived large and died large, and he said they were never going to get his men off that damn mountain, and they didn't because they're buried there. So he fought the gallant fight.
Yeah, and he very much was, in terms of British officers, Ferguson was certainly what you would expect a British officer to be. High and mighty, by the book, wanted to, of course, arrogant, very arrogant.
Well, kick-ass, take names, service the target with extreme prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he was our enemy, He was a very brave guy, and he brought to our continent some very interesting tactics and equipment. And I believe that you cannot talk about the Revolutionary War without talking about Patrick Ferguson. I mean, I believe that he is partially responsible for the modern infantryman. Like, we literally owe his tactics, you know, to everything that we developed into our rifle corps, you know, even into today. I mean, those tactics hold true today.
Hey,
you know,
maybe
sneaking around and,
hey, if
know.
I'm going to hide behind a rock, maybe the bright red uniform and the white shirt isn't that good of an idea.
Yeah, and he did issue,
he would
green and khaki?
green jackets with the black shirts and put them in New England camouflage, and off they went.
Wow, that's so strange.
Who
you
knew?
mean they can't see you?
Yeah. Only the Indians did it better.
It was such an interesting thing back then.
Yeah.
Just to think about their tactics, this rifle to me has always been shrouded in obscurity, and just something's just so cool to show off on the channel here.
It is. Yeah, I won't get to shoot one again until we build one.
Well,
Yeah, we're gonna have to build one.
Yeah, man.
Don't ask unless you've got a pretty deep pocket, because this is going to be. See, this back end of this gun was originally milled out of a solid block of steel, and that's what we're going to do. This one's made out of castings. We'll mill ours. Don't hold your breath. It's going to be a little while till I get that done. But I would like to build one of these. This, maybe a wall gun, maybe, I don't know. We'll come up with something different, right?
this is one of my bucket list rifles. I want to take a deer with one of these so bad. Man, it just... When you squeeze that trigger and that round goes exactly where you're looking, there's something that is so oddly satisfying about it when it's a flintlock and it's doing its job.
Something that came along with this from Artistry in Motion is a contemporary custom 62 caliber, and I mean that thing has got a big hole in the front end. So this particular handgun and this particular rifle both shoot basically the same size ball. You won't see too many handguns from the era. This is useless. Your hands should be doing something else. As we've proven a couple of times, you can walk right up and shoot this thing at something. All it'll do is scare it to death. But there's the two particular from the same age. This would have been from about 1780, 1790. This is from 1778. Crazy stuff. What they actually endured combat with back then, nuts.
Brave guys, man.
I will tell you what, though, this was fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I can't wait to get a hold of an 1812, so that when you have a Hall rifle come through, or maybe if I end up finding one, we'll have to do a video on the Hall.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really see anything in the Americas in terms of a breech loading musket, especially with a flintlock mechanism, until about 1812.
If you think that Kammerlader leaks, stand by, brother. That Hall makes that Kammerlader look like a fire hose. Anyway,
That's right.
Go on. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
yeah.
Very good.
Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. Mark, thanks for being here.
Always.
Man, you always bring the coolest toys. I'm so jealous of some of the stuff you get to play with.
We always get to film, too. That's the best
but
part.
you share it with the world, so that's cool. But man, what a cool piece of hardware.
Very good.
Guys, thank you so much for watching today. Mark, thank you for being here. We have many more videos on the way. We hope you guys will stay tuned. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.